Hello, 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 and welcome back to the channel. This is Jimmy, and thank you for clicking on another episode. So, last weekend I was deathly sick, practically. Whatever this flu is going around took me out, had to leave work Friday, and probably didn't get out of the bed until Sunday afternoon, and didn't get back into the office until Wednesday this week. So I was out sick, couldn't shoot any videos, and I was actually really excited to shoot a new video on Wednesday. Actually, I did, shooting a video on my way to work, and because I've been sick, I didn't charge my mic, and so my mic was dead. So I only got about 5 minutes on a 10-minute video and had to cancel that episode. But won't let that stop me. It's been very cold, and I'm actually feeling 100% better now. And I just thought it'd be a really good day to shoot an episode since it is not that cold. And I think tomorrow we get some temperatures in the high 40s, which is going to feel like summer for the last couple weeks. But I want to talk about today's video topic is emotional intelligence. And this is going to be increasingly important as we move into this age of artificial intelligence and just how fast it's growing, how fast people are catching on, businesses, individuals. It's almost like a gold mine. And I think there's going to be two critical skills. But before I jump into it and defining what emotional intelligence is, I want to talk about why I think this is important. So I don't know if you're a shopper or if you just go out and you go anywhere. I would argue that service has been on a decline for a while, particularly in brick and mortar stores. It's less about the experience. And when you walk into a lot of places, you're very lucky if the staff is engaged. I've been in the service industry for a really long time, and one of the things that customers appreciate, customers seek this out. If they find an engaged employee, they won't let them go. They'll go back to them all the time because people want to feel interested in. And if I'm making a purchase, you're not interested, and I'm giving you my money, it's a little wild. I was at a cookie store the other day getting coffees and cookies with the boss, and it's a lady, the counters are a little bit on the tall side, and the customer, they bought 2 dozen cookies, really expensive place. I don't want to give the name of the business, so it's not about trying to destroy anybody's reputation. The customer probably spent $60 on a couple dozens of cookies, right? 2 dozens of cookies, not cheap. And the customer is trying to reach over the counter and give the young lady the cash. And the team member won't put their hand over the counter, but more than a little bit. They clearly have way more space than this customer. And you can see the customer struggling. So the customer finally puts it on top of the counter. And the cashier is huffing and puffing that she has to now pick the money up off this tall glass counter that she wouldn't reach and put her hand out for. And was almost upset that the customer was paying in cash. And the customer's body language, she didn't know what to say. She just said, "Oh, I'm sorry." No acknowledgement to the sorry, it was more like a whatever. And I just spent $60 on some cookies, and that's the service that I get. And the customer felt like a burden in that moment. The other cashier that was ringing me out stepped away to make our coffee. I'm trying to get the receipt so we can get out of line and at least let the next person step up. And nothing. Couldn't get their attention. They take 3 minutes to make our coffee while there's probably 5 or 6 people in line waiting. And at no point did anybody look up and Cena even cared that the line, even though it wasn't that busy, was outside of the door, because no one was engaged in the work. Gallup put out a study sometime in December this year, and I thought this was fascinating. It said that 59% of employees today are quietly quitting, and there's 18% of employees today that are actively quitting or actively disengaged. And when you do the math on that, what percentage of employees are engaged? Who is engaged in work? And I think that adds up to what I see and experience, when I'm out shopping, is there's definitely a lack of interest in the work people are doing. People are distracted by their phones. They're distracted by other coworkers' conversations. And the person that's usually paying is the customer. The other person that's paying is probably the business owner. I think it's really easy to think about, it's really easy to demonize a corporation and say, well, pay people more when it's a McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, which again, Chick-fil-A pays really well for the work you do. And I think that's why you get a really good service experience overall. But for the mom and pop store, service is everything. For the small business owner, service is everything. And a lot of business owners have great ideas. They make a great product. Maybe they make really good food, but there's no handbook on how to lead people per se. There's not a great handbook for a business owner to know how to hire people that are engaged. And they might hire a friend or the family. They might hire, somebody they think it'd be easier, not necessarily to control, but hopefully be invested in what they're doing. And that's not always the case. And, it probably costs small businesses a lot more to have unengaged and disengaged employees than it does a place like McDonald's, where they can eat on volume and the size of the market. And so the result of this is something I've been researching, that I really want to figure out, like, how do we change? How do we solve this problem? But it costs the U.S. economy about $8.8 trillion a year annually. And someone who has been in the service industry and helping leaders and businesses figure out ways to grow their revenue, it's something that I could tell you I see all the time. And it's increasingly hard to find people doing the job and being engaged in it. I don't think there's a lack of engaged people. I actually think people are looking to be challenged, to be engaged, to do something meaningful. Now I think it's a great thing that we have really diverse workplaces, but we have to be intentional about how do we bring everyone along on the ride. And that's where emotional intelligence come in. There's a shortage of emotional intelligence at the leadership level. And when I think leadership level, I'm thinking at middle manager, even at supervisor, all the way up to the directors and the executives, and a lot of times the CEO, where they don't have the emotional intelligence to read the room and pick up the cues. They don't have the emotional intelligence to really understand what the employee is saying. And so you get a lot of these bogus programs and fake fun and these events that don't improve employee satisfaction or morale. And a lot of times the employer is looking like, well, they're just ungrateful. And it's like, no, that's not what they're asking for. People want to have meaningful work. I was at a grocery store chain today, and, there's 10 self-checkouts. 5 of them are broke. So the line is running down the middle of the aisle for self-checkout, and there's only 1 cash register open. There's 3 supervisors standing up there talking to each other about the self-checkout line, all doing the same job, versus just having the emotional intelligence to see that customers are getting frustrated and having to be able to make decisions. And it's because they were disengaged. I don't know if anybody picked up that the customers in the back of the line were really starting to complain. And I probably saw 3 or 4 people just leave their carts, leave their baskets, and they walked out. And when people are fighting for payroll, they're struggling for hours, businesses are having to lower prices, inflation is up. So people don't want to have to spend extra money and get bad experiences. And so this lack of engagement is really costing organizations a ton of money. And if the person that makes double what I make is not engaged in the work, they're not excited, they're collecting a paycheck and they're in their office talking on their phone to their buddies because they can't listen to the employees, well, then as an employee, why would I care? So I think that's the problem that we're facing today, is there's a lack of engagement, but it's not on the employee, it's on the leadership side. And I reiterated this fact in my book. It comes up in Leadership Beyond the Title, and also address this issue in Breaking Barriers. The only way to get experience leading people is by leading people. You can learn a lot, but you have to try things out with people. And I've been doing this for 25 20 to 25 years where I've just worked with a ton of different types of people, and I've been really intentional in learning like what's the most effective way to communicate. And there's some things that every human needs in communication, and then there's also just some things you have to fill out with good emotional intelligence. We have to start teaching managers and leaders how to develop emotional intelligence. And I think of emotional intelligence as really 4 pillars. 1, self-awareness. As a leader, you have to be cognizant on how you show up to your team. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with leaders or I'm developing a leader and they think leadership is all about being the smartest person or the fastest worker or whatever. And oftentimes what that looks like is a leader who is just sitting there saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, look what I can do, look what you can't do. This is why I'm the boss. And that's how it shows up to employees. So self-awareness is critical. How do I show up to others? How do I sound to others? Do I talk to people in a way that would inspire me? And if I wouldn't be inspired by that communication, what leads me to believe that somebody else will? Empathy. Empathy, sympathy are different. There's been a lot of studies on this, and I definitely recommend as a leader, if you lead people, you need to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. Most people are not looking for sympathy, they're looking for empathy, right? They're looking for you to put yourself in them shoes and understand where they're coming from. And then only then can you offer guidance and perspective. But if you don't know where I'm coming from, how can you offer guidance or perspective? You don't know where I've been, how can you offer guidance and perspective? That's what empathy is. It's feeling that emotion from somebody. And based on that feeling, what would I do? And that's oftentimes how I'm giving guidance and practicality to like my team or leaders that I'm coaching is I have to understand where they're coming from. And if I can feel the weight of that, I could definitely resonate and give really, really sound guidance. We've all been there. And I can tell you there's sometimes the leaders are not being developed. It's because the reputation or the idea is that you're compensated to just figure it out. Well, if you're not engaged as a leader and you're just having that type of conversation and you're just regurgitating information, your team probably is not feeling that empathy because they don't know where you're coming from. And then you're not taking the time, vice versa. So empathy is critical. The third one, social skills. Work has changed. Since Trump's been in office, right? If you're a federal government employee, it's a good chance you're being asked to go back to work in the offices. And everybody can have an opinion on whether that's needed or not, right? I think if you ask 100 people, you're going to get 50 different answers. And the truth probably lies somewhere in the center. There's benefits of working in the office, and there's definitely benefits of being able to work at home. But the workplace is changing. And if you're leading a remote team, how do you keep people connected to the work? It's not about micromanaging, but it's making sure people find value in the work, that they're contributing to the mission. And if you've ever worked on a group assignment in school, you always know that there's a handful of people that do a lot of the work. There's a group of people that kind of are passive, and then there's a group of people that don't do anything. But you got to be able to trust that you've hired the right people and that you're clear enough on the expectation to where you're not so much managing the how. And I think this requires great social skills. Oftentimes, I'm not care about the how. I want to make sure that it's done within the values of the organization or the values that I have as a leader. But outside of that, I don't necessarily care about how people get work done. And this allows me to focus on the social connection and interaction with that individual, making sure that they understand the mission with clarity. And then the fourth thing is situational adaptability or self-regulation. But leaders, we're humans too. Oftentimes, I think employees and teammates might forget about that. But at the end of the day, the people that are placed in roles, director roles, manager roles, they're people too. And no one immediately, I'm going to say no one immediately goes through change, but everybody's been through something that was a struggle, where they have to work through change, get bought into an idea, or work through a challenge. That's part of just life, right? You're working on a team. We're not always going to agree. So situational adaptability is knowing how to regulate your emotions as a leader in those moments. It's learning how to respond to your team in crisis situations. Sometimes people bring me things that I don't want to deal with, or I kind of question like, well, okay, what do you want to do in this situation? This is definitely in your purview to solve. But situational adaptability, if I just let that initial thought pop in my head and that's what's on my face, it doesn't make me very approachable as a leader. And so it kind of ties in with self-awareness, but situational adaptability in times of crisis, even as a leader, when I've been terrified or nervous, not sure about the change, is being able to regulate how I'm feeling and get into a place of optimism so I can lead the work. And I'm very transparent. I'll tell my teams and I'd coach other leaders to do the same. It's okay to say, hey, I was really struggling with this. This is what helped me see it a different perspective. Or, hey, I'm still working on this. This is what I'm focusing on. This is what I find important. But this is where I'm also still seeking clarity. And until I have the clarity, this is what I'm doing, because we still have a job to do. That's a really, really important skill to have as a leader, because when things happen, whether it's a crisis or a policy change, new equipment, you got to do so with this situational adaptability, understand that not everybody is going to immediately get there. And having really strong self-regulation or strong situational adaptability allows you as a leader to really have great buy-in from your team, because they're looking for you for guidance. And in that moment, people are looking for a leader to take charge. People are looking for somebody to follow this, to kind of say, hey, I'm going to be okay. And oftentimes, whether you've been told that or not, that's the reason why you got your job. It wasn't because you were a hard worker. Whoever promoted you saw that ability to be a rock when things were in turmoil. And it's great because they don't have to come be that rock. They can continue to be the rock somewhere else. So you got great responsibility when you're a leader. And there's a lot to manage. No matter what work you're doing, whether you're at an office, you're leading a team of salespeople, financiers, retail, that ability to self-regulate and know how to keep your emotions in check, know when to bring down energy, know when you need to be a cheerleader, is really, really important. And it's going to be really important in today's modern age. There's a lot of things coming, and we're moving at the speed of light. Artificial intelligence is moving at the speed of light. And that can either be scary or exciting, depending on if you think your value add is something AI can do, or can AI expand what you're able to do. But it's hitting us all the same. And so your unique perspective as a leader needs to be heard and felt by your team. And if you're stuck and you don't know what to say, pick up the phone and call a leader who does. It don't even have to be in your same industry. Having a mentor and people you can talk through is extremely valuable. Not every coach is super, super expensive. It doesn't always have to be a coach. You can always pick up a good book to gather some perspective. So that is all, folks. Just really wanted to share this thought. This is something that I'm really working on, something that I'm extremely passionate about. I think emotional intelligence in this day and age can have a significant impact, especially if we put it in the hands of the right people. We need leaders to get employees and staff members engaged in the work. And the only way we do that is by assigning meaningful work and empowering our teams to do the best work they can. And we've gotten away from that a little bit. I see it everywhere. So this is something that I'm taking on as a personal mission. And even if I only impact 1 or 2 people, it's worth my time, because I think that's how things start. Because those 1 or 2 people can hopefully in turn impact 2 to 3 more people. And we just keep going and we keep going. So share this video with somebody that's leading people that can really benefit. Are you being a great conversation at the dinner table? Or are you impacting somebody's family in a negative way because you don't have the emotional intelligence to understand like how you're showing up is impacting somebody's mental health? If you've gotten this far in the video, we'd love to hear resources that you may have to develop and lean in on emotional intelligence. Or what other topic would this, how can I help? How do I go deeper? What section of this conversation would you like me to go deeper in? Drop a comment. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue to do this work. Thank you again. I will see you all soon.